Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Mars squaring Pluto. Mars has just entered the sign of Scorpio, where it is making an immediate square to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. So today I'm going to give you a list of things to watch for. Tomorrow we will do horoscopes. So what I want to do today is just take some time getting to know the combination of Mars and Pluto. And I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for. And I'm also going to take that list through 4 different major areas of life reflected by the angular houses of a birth chart. So we're going to look at 5 things to watch for given the combination of Mars and Pluto with respect to the internal psychological sphere, relationships, workplace or career, and home or family. Some of the areas of life that we most commonly see the manifestation of astrological symbolism. And this will also give you a much more well-rounded understanding of the archetypal combination. So I hope that you will enjoy this, and hopefully it will help us prep. And then again, like I said, tomorrow we'll do some horoscopes. All right, that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so that you get notified when new episodes come around. There's something called a hype button now. So hype us if you feel like it, but drop a comment. All of this really helps the algorithm find us. And we're trying to grow our channel, obviously. Our goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers by next summer. You can find transcripts of many of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. When you are over there, the first thing that I want to turn you on to is I'm giving a talk. This Thursday night, click on Live Talks, and you will see that I'm giving a talk on Mercury. This is a new series that I'm doing through my monthly webinars called The Pairings of the Planets. If you are an astrologer, a student of astrology, or someone who's curious about your own birth chart, going back to the archive or the philosophical first principles of the planets from ancient astrology and learning what it means when they combine is a super valuable skill, because it's going to teach you how to create interpretations on your own rather than just relying on lists. You'll understand the first principles and the pairings of the first principles of the planets, which allows you to become a much more fluid and intuitive astrologer. So in this particular talk on Thursday night, we're going to be talking about Mercury as an archetype or philosophical first principle and how it pairs with every other planet on the level of first principles. This is going to be really fun. Don't sleep on this one. And if you can't attend live Thursday night, of course, you'll get the recording later. We are taking a retreat to Mexico next June. The early bird rate lasts until the first week of October, so you have just a little bit of time left to save on the cost of the retreat. I think we have about 25 spots left or so. This is going to be an awesome training program, brand new curriculum. I don't teach this anywhere else. Check it out. There's a video on the page telling you everything that you need to know about this retreat. It's going to be a beautiful location in Mexico as well. Finally, I also want to remind you that if you go to courses, click on first year course. Our new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, our first year course in Hellenistic astrology begins again November 8th. So if you are interested in studying with us, check this out. There's an informational video about the course tagged on to the end of today's content, so you can learn more about the program, what it includes, how to register, everything like that. The same video is there on the course page. You could watch it later on your own time. At the bottom of the page, you'll find the early bird enrollment options are available until October 24th. This allows you to save significantly on the cost of the course. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So a big part of our vision at Nightlight is to make sure no one's ever priced out of taking an astrology course. Use the tuition assistance. It allows you to pick a rate of your own based on your own unique budget. If you are hurting financially or you're just on a real limited income, we understand, and we want to make sure that people who have a sincere desire to study with us are never priced out. We believe astrology, because it's a sacred topic, should be accessible to people. So if you're on a fixed or limited income for whatever reason you want to study with us, please do take advantage of that. Okay, on that note, let's turn our attention to the real-time clock and let's take a look at Mars and Pluto. All right, so here is the real-time clock, and Mars in the sign of Aquarius, or excuse me, Mars in Scorpio, squaring Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. Now, today is September 23rd. If you are wondering about the opposition between the Sun and Neptune, or the trines between the Sun and Pluto, or the Sun and Uranus, which are also taking place today, go back to yesterday's video where I talk about those aspects at length. You'll get some really nice coverage of how to interpret the Sun aspects that are finalizing today. We're going to get out in front of the Mars-Pluto dynamic because It's very potent, and it's going to take us through the end of the week. I think this is the one that we should spend more time with. But if you're missing that content, again, just go back to yesterday. You'll see me covering it. So Mars squaring Pluto. Now let's take this forward just a little bit. And what we're going to see is that the two planets get together tomorrow, Wednesday, September 24th. That will be the day that Mars squares Pluto exactly. But if we give it 3 degrees of separation, which is always a wise range of degrees that ancient astrologers use, that you can still, typically notice the archetypal symbolism within. Take that forward another day or two, you get all the way to Sunday, September 28th, before Mars and Pluto have fully separated. And that's why I think it's important to be spending more time with this combination this week, because it's a major aspect. These combinations are quite potent, and it's going to last all the way through the end of the week. So on that note, what I want to do today is give you my list of 5 things to watch for given the combination of Mars and Pluto. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, and I've actually, by the way, I've made banners for all of them today. Some of you have complained that when I've done my list of 5 things to watch for in the 4 different areas of life, I haven't included banners, but today I have. So you'll get a little list if it helps you to stay more organized. I'm going to give you 5 things to watch for on an internal or psychological level, which is almost like the first house. We're going to talk about it in terms of love and relationships, like the 7th. We're going to talk about it in terms of work or public professional sphere of life, like the 10th. We'll talk about it in terms of home family karma, like the 4th. These 4 major areas of life are typically the ones in which we engage with these symbols. But again, we'll do horoscopes tomorrow to really fill things out. Anyway, let's talk briefly about Mars and Pluto. And again, I did some of this yesterday, so a little bit of review, but it's important to mention that I was just talking about the archetype, the philosophical first principles. And part of what life is doing in the cosmos, according to ancient astrologers, is coming together and splitting apart. There is a way in which, if you even just look at like waves in the ocean, they come together, they crest, and then they break and fall apart. And so where Venus, for example, is thought of as one of the philosophical first principles of unity, especially in the material sense, things coming together on the level of feelings or tastes or textures or colors. Venus is about that sensual, embodied sense of harmony and unity. Well, in the same embodied material sense, Mars has to do with cutting things or separating things. You could think about Venus like the well-arranged components of someone with, having put on their makeup. And it's like all nice, all the colors, the shading, it all works together. And you could think about Mars in contrast as, if you have some food you're going to cook, you might have to chop it up into pieces and then throw it on a burner. And there's something about that, it's just like, that's such a contrasting image. Well, think about the fact that in reality, things are constantly coming together and splitting apart in cycles, and they are connected to one another. They're inseparable. This is a very basic way of thinking about Mars as a philosophical first principle of cutting, severing, separating, dividing. And we have to do that from the moment we're born. The umbilical cord is cut and we individuate from the mother. The manifest cosmos is oneness, severed and split into many parts. So Mars, there's nothing good or bad about Mars. Mars is just a description of like a metaphysical property of reality from the ancient philosophical standpoint. This is, again, by the way, why I hope that people really will take seriously the Pairings of the Planets series, because when you learn those philosophical first principles, they teach you how to think about planets in a way that makes you a more intuitive astrologer. But anyway, also why it's important to study ancient astrology in general, because the philosophical roots will give you so much more than, memorizing things that are all derived from those roots in the first place. So when it comes to Pluto, we're talking about really the elemental reality of depth and death and the underworld as a kind of instinctual force that is within the material universe. It's funny because we don't often remember that within the circle of life, think like the Lion King, death, darkness, decay, rot, are all part of the cycle of life. And so it's misleading to say that death and life are opposed when they are moving in and out of circles and cycles with one another in the manifest cosmos. So when we think about Pluto, we're thinking about the living presence of death, like Halloween or the Day of the Dead or your ancestral altar. We're thinking about the deep things that exist beneath the soil that on one level are sort of scary and hidden, but also rich, fertile, and regenerative. And so when Mars and Pluto get together, we're talking about a force that cuts, that individuates, that severs, that confronts, that divides, but it does so with a really deep, regenerative, and ultimately very creative and fertile force. It's transformative, and it can be explosive because of the tendency for both Pluto and Mars to represent things like cutting and death and intensity. Heat is a Mars thing. Depth and intensity is a Pluto thing. You put the two together and you get this very kind of intense alchemical burn of transformation that's purpose is in some ways to further something's individuality, its will, its power, its own separate nature apart from other things. And it does so through the catharsis of death and the transformative process of death that is ultimately, in this great circle of life, regenerative. So put those two things together again, and you have a very powerful kind of cathartic force that confronts, that compels, that burns, that consumes, that utilizes the will and confrontation and even conflict, but it can also be about powerful action that it furthers something's process of becoming more of what it is apart from what other things are. So a really fascinating combination. Well, that being said, a little introduction. Let's now get into my list of 5 things to watch for. We're going to start with internal and psychological dynamics. Everything on this list assumes that you may experience any of these things inside of yourself, inside of your own mind, inside of your own body, your psychology, your sense of identity and selfhood. This could be something you're processing as an element within. And so on that level, the first thing to watch for, notice I've got my lists for you. You asked and I supplied it. Compulsion and obsession. Very common Mars-Pluto dynamics. The compulsion to act, the feeling of being that single pointedness of Mars, and the propensity to become consumed or obsessed, which Pluto often provides us with. The two together internally can create a feeling of compulsion and obsession. That may be very constructive and creative right now. It could also be destructive. And so you want to pay careful attention to how intensely compulsive ideas and actions and thoughts or obsessive qualities emotionally are sort of taking over. Are they driving you in a creative, positive direction, or are they taking the wheel in a destructive way? Paying attention to that right now is important. Number 2 would be power struggles within. Whose voice on the inner committee has the most say? Is it a bully? Is it someone who's reasonable and kind? Is it a voice of reason? Is it a voice of paying more attention to our emotions? The power struggles within typically occur when different voices that have different priorities, different perceptions, different agendas, different desires, different motives within us are struggling with one another for whose will or way is going to be most dominant or important or featured within something that's happening in your life right now. So that's another way to look at Mars-Pluto. Number 3 would be breakthroughs or momentum shifts. Where you have felt stuck or stagnant or afraid or insecure, this is a combination in Mars-Pluto that can facilitate a breakthrough. I'm stepping forward, I'm doing something, I'm finding the courage, I'm finding the will, I'm gaining or gathering the momentum or the resources to go and act on something. And that can be very, very helpful. The creative force and impetus to act with Mars-Pluto is strong and, again, can facilitate breakthroughs and shifts of momentum. The intensity of will, however, number 4, is something to also be aware of. Where there's a will, there's a way is a very Mars-Pluto kind of statement. But this is the kind of willpower that can become, again, in obsessive, compulsive, and the intensity behind my will, my way, my power, my right, my sovereignty, all of that kind of language can become problematic. There can be a lot of ego in this. And so something to watch for is, am I open and willing to compromise? Am I considering the reality of other people around me? Am I getting tempted to just bulldoze other people? You got to stay really, pay close attention to that. The intensity of will can also be a good thing. I'm finding the willpower to do something that's hard for me to do, but I'm going to do it. Notice how all of these are about things we may face or deal with psychologically or within. And then finally, just explosive emotions. This is Mars in a water sign, meeting Aquarius in an air sign. The combination of thoughts and feelings and the need to say something about the convictions or beliefs that you have can be quite strong, but it can also lead to overwhelming emotions or emotional outbursts. They can be creative and destructive simultaneously. So keep a close eye on all of these things. All right, next we're going to go into love and relationships. So within the interpersonal sphere of life, we could be talking about a close friendship. Anyone that's closer, more intimate sphere of contact is what I had in mind when I made this list. Lovers would obviously fit the bill, or marriage partners, or someone you're dating, whatever. But let's get into it. Number one would be control dynamics. Mars-Pluto within the sphere of relationships is like, who's got the power, who's got the control? That might be a hot topic this week, given the Mars-Pluto exchange, if it happens to show up in your relationships. Number two would be sexual tension. Look, what I love about this combination is that insofar as Mars represents desire, the desire to penetrate and be penetrated mentally, emotionally, sexually, that's a very strong component of Mars and Pluto that could be at the heart of getting closer to someone, or allowing for more intense exchanges of emotion and feeling to drive a connection. Let's get deeper. Let's get more intimate with one another. There's a very powerful, eruptive, cathartic force of sexuality coming through. It's something, you channeling it in the right way is important, but also honoring it and letting it be a creative presence. Number three, trust issues, especially Mars in Scorpio can struggle at times with, can I trust you? What's really going on beneath the surface? So let's call it investigating things, unconscious things being faced or dealt with, shadows or secrets being faced or dealt with, betrayal, trust and jealousy issues, possessiveness. All of these kinds of things can get amplified with Mars square Pluto. Number four would be conflict escalation, where if there's existing tensions in a relationship, this combination can simply escalate them to a level of, okay, now we have to face it and deal with it. Simple. Number five would be any kind of highly transformative, creative, powerful, moving, kind of core rattling experiences with other people. Intimate, intense, showdowns of will, so just watch for the experience of how we as individual beings with stake in our own individual power, pride, and self-determination are meeting other people in ways that are very powerful, creative, but maybe a little tense. All right. Let's move on to career or work. This would be, broadly speaking, like a 10th house sphere of activity. And you're going to see some very unique ways that Mars-Pluto shows up in the workplace. One would be issues with authority, just clashes with authority, how authority is wielded, whose authority is featured, how authority is being distributed, how responsibility and power is being doled out, problems within hierarchies that exist within companies. Number two would be ambition and the workplace. Mars-Pluto can be very ambitious, and that might be a great thing, fueling new projects, fueling new ideas, creating breakthroughs with respect to your work. Momentum behind projects can build or grow. So I love this as a very ambitious, hardworking, go-get-em kind of combination. At the same time, the dark side of ambition, power, work, fame, success, wealth, prestige, popularity can also become a shadow within the workplace under this transit. Number three would be hidden agendas. So it's very possible that within the workplace, what happens when Mars meets Pluto, especially Mars and Scorpio, is that hidden or secretive power dynamics get exposed somehow. That could be a little dramatic. It could also be very clarifying. Number 4 would be reputation issues, where, again, some concern with how you're seen in the world, whether it's controversial or if you are feeling empowered or you're feeling disempowered. Anything around reputation or identity, its protection, its sanctity, feeling honored or acknowledged appropriately or not. These kinds of things can spike in importance when Mars and Pluto meet and they're tapping into your career in some way. And then finally would be the impetus to change the direction of your work or how you're doing it or what specifically roles or departments. Maybe it's your entire career direction is changing. That would be pretty dramatic, I guess. But reinvention or redirection of work, public identity in a broad sense is very appropriate for Mars-Pluto when they express through our careers. All right, last but not least is family dynamics, which takes us into the 4th house of the birth chart. Many of us will experience Mars-Pluto tapping in to this area of life because of all of the various ways that this can happen in a birth chart. It's not just, well, I have one of these signs in the 4th house. There's many ways that this could tap into family dynamics. One of these planets could be hitting your moon or something else. Anyway, within family dynamics, one would be buried tensions. There is a way in which, in order to coexist with one another, we often take certain kinds of conflicts, especially those that are pretty deeply seated, and we just bury them. We say, we're not looking at those things. Well, they can come up, especially when Mars, Pluto get together and have this kind of eruptive force behind them that can bring pent up things to the surface with eruptive, sometimes destructive, often very creative power. Number 2 would be boundaries in home and family. Mars, Pluto can be, what I want to say as an image is, it's like having a home alarm system or something like that. There's like a home protection services that you can buy, and they'll come out and they'll set it all up in your home and everything like that. And the whole reason you do that is you say, well, we don't want the boundaries of our home, our privacy, our safety violated. I mean, that's the basic idea, right? But within the home, there are also alarm systems that might be getting triggered because of invasive actions within the constellations that we share with one another. So think about it like that. Sometimes actions are, especially in the fourth house, they're like trespassing. I'm trespassing onto the territory of my sibling, or my mom is trespassing into my wife's territory. Or do you know what I mean? Like it can be like that. So watch for the boundary issues and trespassing issues around each other in the family or home. Another one would be ancestral power patterns. So who has held the authority and how has authority been modeled within the family? For example, if you grow up in a traditional, like masculine dominant sort of more patriarchal family model, which a lot of us have, the dad carries the authority or something like that. Or in some homes, maybe it was more mom. Mom was like a kind of a matriarch. Whatever the case may be, the way that power is distributed, expressed, shared, or not shared may come up in some ways for review. Or maybe there's an opportunity to change the way things are being done so that there's a more egalitarian distribution of roles, rights, responsibilities, power, etc. So watch for shifts like that that could come up meaningfully. Number 4 would be structural changes to home or family. Mars Pluto may say it's time to move, it's time to sell the house, it's time to buy a new piece of land or property, it's time to put an addition on. So anything that's structural and very physical, or anything surrounding how the home or family is organized or set up in any other way could come to mind. And then finally would be any time that it feels like there's healing or catharsis, or you're facing something or working through something, it's got this kind of power to unpack unconscious stuff at the roots around home, family, ancestry, the past, your living environment. And by unpacking or bringing things up, it has the power to heal or create meaningful positive changes. This is the broadest thing we could say about Mars-Pluto impacting home or family. So as you can see, these are major dynamics at play. This is why I'm kind of shifting the focus to Mars-Pluto right away this week, because it's got a lot to say. Tomorrow, we're going to look at horoscopes for the actual day of. where I'll take you through all 12 whole signs and give you a feel for how these things are interacting. So after I sign off right now, there's an informational video about my year 1 class, the Ancient Hellenistic Astrology program. I want to say, if you guys like the content on my channel, especially if you like the philosophical content and some of the moments where I cover the ancient, historical, philosophical, and spiritual roots of the tradition, my real passion is teaching. It's what I'm best at. My programs are the best thing I've ever created creatively, in my life. Although I love my book, my new book that I'm writing, and I like writing a lot, but my programs really are the best thing that I have to offer. And so I highly recommend, if you're someone who's like, I love this language, but I want to become more proficient, I want to understand its roots, I want to be more intuitive with it. This is a lifelong hobby for you. It's really worth it at some point to invest a little bit more time and focus learning the language from the roots. That's what this program is really good for. So stick around after I sign off. You'll hear more about it, and I hope to see some of you soon. Don't forget, there's need-based tuition. So if you're someone who wants to take the program, but you're on a limited income, we understand. So please make sure you check out the video. And on the website, on the first year course page, you'll see at the bottom, there's a need-based tuition option. All right, that's it for now. Take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is our first year course in Hellenistic astrology, and it begins again this November. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the course, the format of the course, and how to register. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is this course about? Well, if you are not familiar, ancient Hellenistic astrology is the earliest and original form of horoscopic astrology. All of the subsequent forms and schools of astrology that have existed over thousands of years come from these philosophical and theoretical roots. And so what you're doing when you study Hellenistic astrology is you're going back to understand the why behind absolutely everything. Why were there ever such a thing as houses and signs in the first place? How were the planets ever assigned to rule various portions of the zodiac in the first place? How do you use the categories of essential dignity, and why were they ever created in the first place? If you're someone like me, you like to know the why behind things, because once you understand the why, then you know how to use things more intuitively. So really the point of Hellenistic astrology, in my opinion, is not so much about going back and becoming a traditional astrologer or, just being traditional for the sake of being traditional, as much as it is about grasping the roots of the entire system and paradigm. When you understand those roots, you have more intuition and understanding, which allow for you to be much more artful and fluid in the way that you speak the language of astrology. We call this class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic because while it is about going back to understand the philosophical, theoretical, technical roots of the tradition, it's also about fluidly bridging those things with modern astrology and all of its most unique contributions. For example, modern astrology has given us so much psychological depth and personal depth. And so in a modern astrological setting, you're going to get the ability to explore your own character, your own psychology, and you're going to be able to utilize astrology for a process of healing and personal transformation. But when you pair that with ancient astrology, and it's almost like predictive karmic analytics, you really have a full toolkit to work with. And so that's also a great mission of ours at Nightlight, is to bridge ancient and modern forms, which is why we call the program Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So that's just a little kind of overview of the program. If you want to know more about the specifics of the curriculum and of the syllabus, what I encourage you to do is go over to nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, scroll down, and you'll see this over 12 months you'll learn about. And here you're going to see more of a detailed breakdown of the curriculum itself. I can promise you that if you've studied astrology in modern context, but you've never gone back to the ancient roots, while some of these topics may look familiar to you and you go, oh, I've already learned about that. Unless you've studied them from the Hellenistic perspective, I guarantee that you are not going to be familiar with this content. Hellenistic astrology is mind-blowingly new and interesting for most people. And if you've never studied it, again, don't assume that anything on this list is something you're going to be familiar with. In that way, the program is really ideal for a variety of different people, and I'll say more about that in a second. So what is the format of the course? Let's go to that next. Scroll down and you're going to see that the course includes 30 online webinars that I lead throughout the year. Over the course of a year together, I have 30 classes that are broken into different units of material. In between those classes, we have breakout study sessions with your course director and 2 TAs. They're going to lead you through Q&A sessions and tutoring sessions to make sure that you have a lot of support in between major units of study. In addition, we also have an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions year-round and get an answer within a business day in the student forum, where a lot of people also connect and build community. Lots of people in that forum also develop like little meetup groups outside of class. That's very common in all of our programs. It's a very community-loving, warm space where anyone's also welcome. Throughout the course, you're also going to find that for every lesson, if you're just there as a hobby student, you can just listen to the webinars. They're all recorded for you. So if you can't make the live webinars, everything is housed on the website as recordings. I'd say about 40 or 50% of our students are going to be following along at their own pace, whereas the other half might be attending the live webinars. But it's really kind of, you know, if you can attend a few and then 1 week you got to be gone, the recordings are always there. You have lifetime access to everything in the course, so it's not a big deal. For every lesson as well, if you're someone who wants to go really, really deep, maybe you have the intention to practice professionally, this course is set up with an optional certification exam at the end from our school, from our program. So you can, you know, if you want to build that resume and develop the credentials from our programs, you can do that, but you also, it's optional, so you don't have to. And outside of every lesson, we have recommended reading. We have supplemental bonus content, all of which is optional, but it's there for people who might want a lot more, whereas some people will take the webinars themselves, and that'll be plenty. So it's really flexible in that way. Also, this is one program within 4 years of curriculum that are meant to go together. And so most people who come through our first year program will end up taking our second year program, where we develop forecasting and prediction and transit tracking techniques. Our third year program, which is aimed at counseling and psychology. So psychological counseling skills is our third year program. And then the Oracle Within, which is our exploration of the philosophical, spiritual roots of the divinatory oracular tradition of astrology. So there's a lot of material there. We also have another 1 year program in horary astrology for some people who want to add that predictive tool to their toolkit. So there's just a lot of material at Nightlight that this class is actually just one part of, which can be taken standalone, or for some people, they get into it, they're going to love it. You're going to hang out with us for 3 or 4 years worth of content. This program is ideal for a number of different types of students of astrology. I'll say that for starters. So let's see here. I'll stop sharing this. So we have there's a profile of the typical students who come through our courses. One is going to be people who just want a very guided introduction to ancient astrology because you've never had it before. Maybe you're only familiar with modern, and you want that guided, structured approach to learning traditional for the first time. Also, people who are brand new to astrology in general, there's no better place to start than at the roots of the ancient foundations. So whether you're a total beginner or just a beginner to Hellenistic, this is a great place to start. If you are someone who's been around astrology for a long time, but you've never had a guided, structured approach to Hellenistic astrology, again, this is a great place to start. I promise you, Hellenistic is very different than what you're familiar with, and you're going to need a guided and structured approach at some point in time. I also think for people who are looking for a lineage, which means not just a bunch of information, but a practitioner-specific based approach where you get to see a practitioner work with clients. You get to hear how a practitioner has prioritized different techniques and why. You're going to get a structured, spiritually grounded focus at Nightlight as well, where if you're looking for someone who practices astrology but also values grounded, everyday spiritual practice, that's Nightlight. If you want a community that's been in the industry for a long time now, this is our 16th year of teaching programs and guiding students through trainings. So all of those things, if they matter to you, this is a great place to study. It's a warm community atmosphere. It's spiritually grounded. It's focused. It's academically rigorous. It's going to provide you the appropriate preparation for practicing professionally, especially if you go through all of our programs. But also for those who are just curious and love astrology for your own personal interests, this is going to be a great place for you to learn and grow and thrive and feel like you have a lot of support around you in the curriculum, the teachers, the community, as you're developing, what might just be a personal interest or spiritual hobby. So that is who it's ideal for. Finally, how you register. You go over to the website. I'm going to take you back there. And it's at the bottom of the first year page. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect until October 24th. You can save significantly off the cost of the course when you use the early bird rate, where you can pay in full, or use an early bird installment rate plan. Both are going to save you off significantly off the cost of the course. But also at Nightlight, it has always been our mission to make sure that astrological education is accessible for everyone. So please, if you are someone who would love to take this course, but maybe you can only afford a small amount of tuition per month, use the tuition assistance. It is there. All you got to do is apply. You fill out the little form, you tell us your situation. If you're on a fixed income, if you're on a limited income, if you're part-time, if you're in between jobs, if you don't make a lot and you're on that fixed budget, we understand. We don't want people to hurt themselves trying to study something that is spiritual that we feel should be very accessible for everybody. So if you're someone who could use a little help to make this program happen, for whatever reason, maybe you're a single parent, or you're on disability, or you're retired, or you're on a fixed income, whatever the case is, use that tuition assistance. Also, people in other countries who have extreme, exchange rates, we get it. So just use the tuition assistance, and we'll be glad to make sure that the price point is accessible. For us, as a spiritual topic, we're a business at the end of the day, but we believe that this is a spiritual topic. And so accessibility has been a part of our model for 16 years now. We've never not had one of our training programs with affordable sliding scale-based prices for people who need it. So please take advantage of that. It's all there for you. I hope to see you in classes soon. And if you have any questions about the program whatsoever, direct them to us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see you all coming up here in November. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.